What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a special edition of the Daily Energy Newsbeat Stand-Up here on this gorgeous Friday, March 24th, 2023. We appreciate you guys sticking with us through this long week. We are bringing you the top segments from this week. We've got some great ones lined up. I know we're going to be talking SVB and the bank collapse. We're going to be talking supply, demand, and specifically what's going on in the oil market. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over and let you do this. But guys, remember, all the stories you're about to hear courtesy of the world's greatest website, www.energynewsbeat.com. Check out the links and all the stories below. We appreciate you guys hitting our website. We just had our best month last month. Looking at the numbers, if they hold out, will be by far our best month, and that goes back to you guys. We appreciate you guys checking us out. I'm gonna let you get to the show, though, guys. We'll talk more Monday. See ya.
I'll tell you what, I love Norway, and let's start at Norway as we go across the pond. How does Norway export its natural gas, but more importantly, to who or to whom, depending if my aunt is talking to us. So if you talk of Norway, they exported more than 120 billion cubic meters of gas in 2022 via pipelines. There is a pipeline system that's put in there that's been going on for 70 years. It's just amazing. And Michael, as a side note, you and I talked about Norway 2 years ago shutting down their gas. And boy, they have had a change of heart there. So who receives Norwegian gas? They also have only one export facility for LNG. So it's all pipeline. And the pipelines are connected to 7 receiving terminals. Britain and Germany each have 2, and Belgium, Denmark, and France all have 1. That's significant for a complete infrastructure. And the link that's in here goes to the gas, the pipeline system is on the government, the Norway government site, and it is worth going in and taking a look at that. It comes from the North Sea as well as the Norwegian fields online. And it's amazing when you take a look at how much the system can deliver. 6.5 billion cubic meters of LNG per year. That's just of LNG. It's
and it says in the article it's only 5% of the Norwegian gas exports. I mean, low key, Norway's probably loving what's going on internationally right now. They probably hate the war in Ukraine, but the fact that they're now the chief exporter among all of these European countries, and they're filling up and they basically have unlimited demand for Norwegian gas. I mean, low key, they probably like it.
Oh, absolutely. And so they are starting their more EMP operations. It's amazing.
Why would you not?
It's amazing how they were about ready to curtail that.
Considering the fact that this banking crisis is going to impact oil in a negative way, I think it's important to cover specifically just what's going on. So UBS right now is in talks, was in talks all this weekend. And just as we started to record this here about 3:45 on the 19th, has agreed to buy Credit Suisse for about $3.2 billion. They're getting a $54 billion quote unquote loan from the Swiss National Bank, which will be able to help finance the rest of it. The Swiss, they've really up. It's actually 100 billion Swiss francs, or 108.8 billion. I mean, as far as this is to say, the whole premise was too big to fail is out the window, because we're also now seeing. We saw this weekend that mid-sized banks are asking the FDIC to insure all unsecured deposits for 2 years.
Right.
The unraveling is here. I'm not saying if there's a bank run that happens tomorrow, people, I'm sorry. And I'll be on the streets with you because I'm in Bank of America. So hopefully they're good. We're all in on Bank of America here in the Taylor household. So fingers crossed. But if there's a bank run, I'm in trouble. So we hope you are too.
Yeah.
I don't have any. I told Stu, if there's a bank run that starts tomorrow and anarchy sets in, I'm heading up north to find you.
You got a cot here.
I just got gas today. I'm no kidding. I got gas today, kind of thinking like, If tomorrow comes around, I can at least get up to stew on that full tank.
There you go.
So what are your thoughts on all this?
I knew last year when I said there was a great awakening coming on, and I, before you throw up, and I found where I said it, and the great awakening is going on. And I also thought that we were going to have a recession. I always thought we were in a recession in last December, and the world is coming around to some of the toughest times it's ever seen. And it's because of printing money. The global printing of money is the payment is now coming due. And this is only the first part.
Yep. No, I mean, we probably are in a global recession, or we're coming up to one, and it's the outlook doesn't look pretty. So Goldman Sachs, we appreciate you coming out with some coherent analysis.
But
Anything else?
I think we're going to have a good light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train. So I think that we will come around out of this. Despite liberal media wishful thinking, China just keeps pumping out more carbon dioxide. Michael, this article is absolutely a hoot, as we say. And it is a timeline of liberal thinking about the United States spending more and more money to get rid of greenhouse gases. And then all of a sudden, China says they're going green, but they ain't. But let me give you some headlines here. Here's a brief history of China going green. In the late 1990s, U.S. stabilized its carbon dioxide at a bit below 6 billion tons a year. And China began a massive increase in its emissions in 2004. China surpassed the U.S. and kept climbing. By 2010, they'd reached 10 billion tons annually, where the U.S. was down to 5.5. Rutro, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fairly clear to anybody with a brain that China has been leading the world in emissions since the early 2000s. And It's been clear to anybody that if you're going to curtail world emissions, you have to do with China. And making emissions here at home that just put poor folks and raises their energy prices is not the solution. So this is just, in fact, it's just, in fact, exactly what's been happening. People are just now waking up to it.
Well, it's even worse than that. It goes on further in the article, and it says, and I saw this last week, a fairly well-known Democrat, I don't want to misspeak, but that Democrat said, oh, we need to catch up to China in the green energy. This is almost the same quote that was done in Obama's time period. Germany and China are beating the U.S. energy efficiency.
Yeah.
The liberal website Mashable declared in its climate change in 2016. Who has energy crises going on really, really bad right now? Germany and China. China is putting in more coal than anybody else on the planet. So anyway,
yeah,
I just thought
we will cover China coal here very quickly, but I think we need to check out Monday's energy absurdity of the day.
Nearly half of climate change companies in banked failed with SVB. It's not that the solar or startups, it's the biotech startups. It is the ambitious climate companies and everything else. We need those companies and we need to invest in them. So while this article is saying that nearly half of the climate change companies in U.S. bank failed SVB actually failed because they were ESG, I disagree. I think that it failed because of the policies, not because of their clients. So it doesn't matter if you're a green energy company. It doesn't matter if you're an oil and gas company. If your bank has got failed policies, it's going to fail. So in my personal opinion, I think that bankers need to keep their eye on the ball, make money, offer the best banking for fossil, for renewables. And the reason is because we're not going to get to carbon net zero without fossil fuels. We're not going to be able to have any of the solar panels made. Anyway, well, thanks for letting me rant on that article, but that one's also very important as well, too. Bank turmoil could undermine the effect of Biden's clean energy bill. Huh. Last night, Michael, when you were watching the baseball game, this article talks about how many startups with Silicon Valley Bank were startups in the renewable space. Great.
Mm-hmm.
My rant yesterday was on the fact that let's not talk penalize the bank or say that it was the bank's fault or those renewable startup companies. Banks have the obligation to actually do good business. These guys were just customers. Don't blame a bank failing because they're renewable energy companies. That has nothing to do with a failed bank using failed business policies. There are renewable companies out there that are well-run companies. They're using incentives from the government. They're using their products. They're good businesses. You can't blame a failed bank because they're funneling money to a renewable company. There are good renewable companies. They had failed business practices. They had somebody that was not even looking at their financials. That was my whole purpose on this article.
Yeah, and I think it's clear that anytime the government is subsidizing a given industry, when that subsidy goes away or the ability to attract capital goes away from that sector, you're going to see a fall and you're going to see an underwriting. So, yes, as you mentioned, should we be cheering that climate tech took a hit? Yeah, we shouldn't be dancing on the grave of those people who are now basically never going to be able to fundraise again, because sure, they've got their money back, but it's going to be tough for them to go to another bank that is going to give them the
Right.
and it's going to give them the type of stuff and the access that Silicon Valley Bank did. And specifically, I think on the budget that Biden is rolling out, he's going to have to get extremely creative on how this is financed. And when I mean creative, I mean the state will pay for it.
I saw an article,
AKA you.
Right, the consumers.
Just Stu.
I think it was 70 trillion or 7 trillion. I don't know what's a few trillion between friends now, but the US government needs to put, let's just say it's 7 trillion, give them the benefit of the doubt, in order to hold securities for bank deposits for others that potentially could fail. Whatever the number is, it's huge. This is a bad precedent.
Yes, no, it's definitely a bad precedent, but this whole bank crisis is absolutely insane, because what do? You expect you expect me to start doing due diligence on banks that I put my money in? Like, I shouldn't have to do that.
Nope. Putin and Xi sign a string of strategic agreements. And as you said, Putin to Xi, we support Chinese yuan use with Asia, Africa, and Latin America. I'm going to start on this article first, but they go hand in hand. Michael, in the ceremony at the Kremlin on the second day of the Chinese leader Xi's visit, Putin and Xi kicked off formal talks, which will focus on the Ukraine crisis. This is critical, Michael. I'll go into that in here in just a sec. They shook hands and stood side by side. And in the picture, you can see them all standing there. And I think they're talking about 3 guys walk into a church. No, that's a different story. Sorry, Michael. You've heard of those, whenever it says 3 guys walk into a bar. Okay. But Z invited Putin to travel to China, but now that he's met there, here's the key point out of both of these. Not only are they doing a brotherhood of the bond, they are now talking peace. China is negotiating peace between Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq. This is now going on, and they're now talking about doing more trade using the yuan as the global currency. This is critical. And then we had our spokesperson for the United States stand up yesterday, and they said, if this is not a direct quote, but it's an almost quote. He said, if China negotiates a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, we will not approve it.
Absolutely. Even when Zelensky said he would agree to it. That's the craziest part.
Who in the heck turned the U.S. into bad guys? This drives me.
Newsflash, we've always been the bad guy.
Well,
it's like that classic meme where it's like the guy who's looking at the world and he's like, what's gone wrong? And it's the same guy behind him shooting him. It's always been me.
It's always been me. Well, these articles, and I encourage our listeners and our readers to go check out these two articles. They'll be in the show notes. And it is critical in so many ways, geopolitically, energy. They're signing deals, they're signing currency. This is huge.
Well, along that point, they specifically, one of the quotes out of the articles is, we signed a strategic agree. This is from President Xi over in China. We signed a strategic a statement on deepening the strategic partnerships and bilateral ties, which we are entering in this new era. One of the specific things that Putin specifically mentioned was the fact that Russia is there to meet the energy needs of China. And specifically, they've agreed upon additional natural gas deliveries, at which they will start to work on building some joint LNG facilities. So from an actual energy standpoint, not only were they going to be exchanging currencies and maybe swapping some of that for it looks like they're already doing payments in rubles, but looks like the yuan's going to get mixing in with that. Well, they're just going to start trading. So it's going to become a self-sustaining ecosystem without the United States in the global energy picture very quickly.
Oh, and it gets even worse than that from a standpoint that now OPEC is also worried. OPEC and OPEC plus. Now remember, Russia is part of OPEC plus. You're going to have, okay, Michael, let me explain this a little bit. They already have a pipeline going in the works. Russia is going to pipeline to China, but that does not get China all the natural gas they need. And so what that's going to mean is that they are going to, are you all right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It looked like you were passed out. I was afraid this was
I'm
one
good.
of those. Okay, that was one of those
notes.
Okay, one of those COVID guy dies on the set. We don't want that. So when we sit back and you take a look, Putin's going to be doing LNG with China. He's already got the LNG facility in the Arctic, and then that's going to go to China. And then China is now going to be shipping weapons and munitions to Russia. And that drove the Biden administration even further nuts.
Yeah, it's a...
Russia has the energy. China has the manufacturing. They don't need us.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we're not part of it.